You are so useless. I told you to get out.
Stop it.
Hey, stop. You're killing him. You are a useless father-in-law.
She slammed her father-in-law's head against the door, and the revenge that followed will shake you to your core. He wasn't a perfect man, but he was still the man who raised her husband, the man who blessed their marriage, the man she once called Daddy. But that afternoon, she wasn't thinking about respect, or blood, or consequences. She thought she was alone in the hallway. She thought no one saw the rage twisting through her fingers, the hatred she had been hiding for months. She didn't know someone was standing behind the curtain, watching every second. Her husband had always believed he married a gentle, patient woman. A woman who treated his aging father like her own. A woman who would never raise her voice, let alone her hands. But what he witnessed broke something inside him. A line crossed. A truth revealed. A mask ripped off in one violent, unforgivable moment. Now he is no longer just a son. No longer just a husband, but a man trapped between loyalty and justice. And the decision he makes next will spark a revenge so shocking, so unexpected, that no one in that house will ever be the same again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ocean of Tales. Kindly like, comment, and subscribe on this channel. We will be notifying you when we drop a new video. Don't forget to tell us where you are watching from. The moment begins with motion. Her hand gripping the doorframe, her body lunging forward, and the sudden violent thrust that sends his head crashing into the hardwood. The sound slices through the quiet afternoon like a gunshot, sharp, hollow, unforgettable. Dust trembles off the frame. A framed picture rattles on the wall. The old man's knees buckle as he collapses, his breath knocked out of his lungs in a single broken gasp. And in that terrifying split second, before guilt or fear can settle, she straightens her blouse and looks around, praying the house swallowed the sound. Her heartbeat thunders in her ears as she steps back, fingers trembling from the force she didn't know she carried. Sweat beads along her neck. The hallway feels suddenly narrower, tighter, as if the walls themselves are judging her. She watches the old man struggle to rise, his hand shaking as it gropes for balance against the wall. A dark red spot begins to bloom, where his head struck the wood. She inhales, fighting the rising panic, telling herself he deserved it, that he provoked her, that no one will ever know. But she doesn't see the curtain shift behind her. A faint creak breaks the silence, like someone shifting weight just out of sight. She freezes, eyes darting across the hallway, scanning every shadow, every corner, every possible face that could have witnessed that unforgivable moment. The house, usually busy with footsteps and voices, now feels haunted by something unseen and waiting. She tries to steady her breathing, tries to believe she is still in control, but a strange coldness creeps up her spine. Someone was close enough to hear that slam. Someone was close enough to see. And whoever it is now holds a truth that can bury her. The old man finally manages to sit upright, groaning as he presses trembling fingers to the swelling bruise forming on his temple. His chest rises and falls like he's running out of breath. She watches him silently, her expression contorting between satisfaction and regret. His frailty should have softened her anger, yet it only fuels something darker, a sense that he has always been the weight on her back, the reminder of everything she hated about this family. But even as these thoughts swirl, the feeling of being watched lingers like a shadow she can't shake off. A slow, deliberate footstep echoes from behind the curtain, soft enough to be almost imagined, but firm enough to confirm what she fears. She whirls around, eyes fixed on the wavering fabric, but no one emerges. The hallway is still. The air feels heavier. Somewhere in that silence, a truth settles in her chest. She is not alone. Her mind races through possibilities, a relative, a neighbor, a househelp, or worse, her husband. The uncertainty gnaws at her stomach, twisting into a cold knot that makes her knees weak. This moment has witnesses, even if they stay hidden. As she kneels beside the old man, pretending to help, every gesture becomes an act in a performance she didn't rehearse. She steadies his arm, lifts his chin, wipes imaginary dust off his clothes, anything to erase the image of violence from the room. But the harder she tries to appear innocent, the more the hallway betrays her. The dent in the door, the blood on his hair, the way her hands shake each time she touches him. And beneath all of that, the invisible observer stands somewhere close, holding a silent verdict she cannot run from. When she finally helps him to his feet, a cold gust sweeps across the corridor, flipping the curtain slightly, just enough for her to catch a silhouette vanishing into the next room. Her breath stops. Someone saw everything. Someone has already begun walking away with the truth she fought so hard to hide. The old man leans against her, unaware of the storm she has unleashed, while her mind spirals into panic. Because whoever witnessed that slam is now the one person who controls her fate. And she knows with certainty that silence will not last forever. She wakes up the next morning before everyone else, moving through the house like a well-trained hostess, slippers whispering against the tiles as she straightens cushions, opens curtains, and lets in soft Lagos daylight. The kitchen smells of onions, fresh pepper, and fried plantain as she arranges his favorite breakfast with robotic precision. From the outside, she looks like love in motion, a woman devoted to family and routine. Inside, every stir of the pot feels like a chain dragging across her heart. She serves the table with a quiet smile, already calculating who is watching and what they believe. She kneels at his door with calculated grace, balancing the tray in her hands, her knees pressing into the cold floor as if it's a holy ritual. Her knock is gentle, respectful, the kind anyone would praise. When the door opens, she lowers her head, body language broadcasting humility to any passing eye. The hallway becomes her stage and respectability her costume. Neighbors who visit see only sweetness wrapped in ankara and perfume. Yet behind lowered lashes, her thoughts burn, replaying insults, slights, and memories she never allows to reach her face. She becomes the perfect hostess whenever extended family visits, gliding between rooms with bottles of malt, plates of jollof, and practiced laughter. Her voice floats through the sitting room, warm and well-timed, as she praises the man seated on the single-seater like a king. She leans forward when he speaks, as if his every word is gospel. The aunties nod approvingly. The uncles murmur that her husband chose well. No one notices how her jaw tightens when she walks away, or how she exhales like she's been holding her breath underwater. She times her kindness like strategy, making sure every good deed has a witness. She helps him down the stairs when his knees ache, arranges his medication in a neat row, reminds him of his doctor's appointments before anyone else. The house help watches in quiet admiration, sometimes even envying the closeness they think is real. She makes sure the neighbors see her pushing his wheelchair on slow evenings, their silhouettes framed by estate lights.
To them, she is the standard.
To herself, she is just polishing a mask that is beginning to crack along old, invisible lines. She studies the family like a chessboard, learning who worships him, who fears him, and who only tolerates him for the money tied to his name. At family gatherings, she positions herself where conversations cross, soaking in unfiltered gossip like fuel. Every whispered secret about the past tightens something in her chest. She files away every clue, every careless comment about inheritance, favoritism, and old wounds. While they see her as a harmless listener, she is mapping alliances in her mind, planning how to survive a war they don't even realize she's fighting in silent rage. She uses the church as another stage, walking beside him on Sundays with a Bible in hand and a gentle hand on his elbow. Parishioners smile at the sight, whispering blessings over such a godly family. The pastor's wife praises her publicly, calling her a rare daughter-in-law, a true example for younger wives. She accepts the compliments with a soft nod, the picture of modesty. But the moment she sits in the pew, hands folded, a different prayer stirs inside her. Not for his long life, but for the day she no longer has to pretend. She keeps her true emotions locked in small, private moments when no one is around. The way she grips the bathroom sink after hearing him dismiss her sacrifices, the way tears fall silently while she folds his clothes, the way her chest burns when she remembers how this house once made promises it never kept. Each quiet breakdown hardens into resolve, layering over the last like cement. By the time she leaves the mirror each day, the soft woman has disappeared again, replaced by the actress everyone applauds, unaware that one day, the performance will end violently. He wakes before dawn with a wince, the bruise on his forehead throbbing like a heartbeat he can't quiet. The house is still, filled with the faint hum of the generator outside and the whisper of early morning wind slipping beneath the door. He sits on the edge of the bed, fingers trembling as they trace the tender swelling, not because of the pain, but because it reminds him of how fragile his place in this home has become. He tries to stand, but the dizziness pulls him back, forcing him to confront memories he buried long ago. In the mirror, he studies the man staring back, the tired eyes, the deep lines carved by years of regret, the shoulders that used to be broad with strength, but now slump under invisible weight. The house he built with pride feels foreign now, filled with voices that rarely echo his name with warmth. He presses a cloth to his wound, but it does nothing for the ache beneath his ribs. The ache of a father who made mistakes long before she ever joined the family. And now, those buried mistakes are beginning to resurface in terrifying ways. He moves through the hallway slowly, each step stirring ghosts of moments he hoped his son had forgotten, broken promises, harsh words, years he wasn't present enough to understand the damage he caused. Every family photo along the wall tells a story he wishes he could rewrite. A younger man too proud, a wife who cried quietly at night, a son caught in the middle. He touches one frame gently, remembering the day it was taken, and realizes how easily the woman in the next room pierces the cracks he never repaired. Her hatred wasn't born yesterday. He stops by the window where sunlight spills across the tiled floor, warming his trembling hands. From here, he sees children biking past the gate, their laughter floating through the compound. A sound he once heard in his own home before it faded. He lingers, remembering afternoons when his son would run to him with scraped knees and stories he was too distracted to listen to. Regret tightens his chest. He wonders if this is why she hates him, because beneath her gentleness, she saw the truth about him before anyone else did. He sits in the living room, replaying the moment his head struck the door. Not the pain, but the look on her face. The flash of anger wasn't random. It was practiced, familiar, something that had lived beneath her smile for a long time. He knows resentment when he sees it. He spent years seeing it in his late wife's eyes. What troubles him more is the nagging feeling that this young woman's anger is rooted in something deeper than household tension. Something connected to choices he made years before she entered their lives. He watches her carefully when she finally enters the room. The way she moves with precision, the way she avoids his gaze, the way her hands grip the tray just a little too tightly. She sets his tea on the table with mechanical kindness, but underneath the quiet movements lies a tension that prickles his aging instincts. He senses danger, the kind that builds slowly and strikes when no one expects it. He wants to ask her why she did it, wants to confront the truth, but fear traps the words in his throat. He is no longer the stronger one. He leans back into the couch, feeling the room tilt with dizziness as he closes his eyes. Memories drift in like unwelcome fog. A business betrayal he never confessed, an old family feud he never settled, a woman from years ago whose shadow still stains his name. He wonders which of these wounds grew into the hatred she carries. And as the house grows quiet again, he realizes something chilling. The slam he suffered wasn't an accident of anger. It was the eruption of a pain he helped create long before she ever had the chance to strike back. He stands behind the curtain long after the slam has faded, his breath trapped somewhere between his ribs and his throat. The fabric brushes his shoulder as he leans forward, replaying the moment he never expected to witness. His father crumbling, his wife straightening her blouse like nothing happened. The house suddenly feels alien, its familiar walls twisting into something haunted. He steps out from his hiding place, moving slowly, each step carrying the weight of a son who just learned his home has been living a lie. He doesn't call her name. He doesn't whisper a word. He enters the dining room with footsteps soft enough to hide the storm inside him. The chairs are perfectly arranged, breakfast already laid out, the aroma of fried eggs and plantain pretending everything is normal. But his eyes don't see the food. They see the bruise forming on his father's forehead, the trembling in the old man's fingers as he tries to steady himself. Shock hits him again, sharp as a blade. He feels something break in him, something sacred. And in that fracture, a dangerous silence begins to grow, deeper than anger, colder than betrayal. He watches his wife glide around the table, her hands moving with practiced grace as she adjusts cutlery and wipes invisible stains. From the outside, she looks peaceful, a woman taking care of her home. But he sees the tension in her shoulders, the stiffness in her neck, the tiny tremor in her left hand. She isn't calm. She's calculating. Every movement is a performance, carefully staged to bury the violence he saw. He studies her the way a man studies a dangerous stranger, realizing he might have married someone he never truly knew. And that thought terrifies him. He tries to swallow the rising bitterness as he helps his father into a chair. The old man winces, trying to mask the pain, but the son feels the flinch, like a punch to his own chest. For years, he believed he had built a peaceful home, a family untouched by chaos. Now, he sees the cracks everywhere, little moments he dismissed, subtle tensions he ignored, smiles that didn't reach her eyes. He sits down with a calm expression, but inside he's unraveling, each thread pulling open a new question he can't answer yet. He steals glances at his wife as she pours water into glasses, her movements too gentle, too controlled. He remembers times when she seemed overwhelmed by tiny mistakes, yet today, after nearly injuring his father, she wears a calm mask that doesn't fit. The disconnect rattles him. His mind becomes a battlefield of memories. The day he introduced her to the family, the admiration in his father's eyes, the harmony he thought he created. Now, those memories sting like betrayal. Something in her smile feels rehearsed, and he wonders how long she has been perfecting this role. He steps outside for air, but the quiet Lagos morning offers no comfort. The compound gate creaks in the distance, a generator hums next door, and a dog barks faintly. Everything feels normal except him. He grips the balcony rail, knuckles whitening as he tries to steady the tornado inside him. He can't confront her, not yet. Not until he understands the root of what he saw. His father's wound is visible, but her motivations are hidden in shadows. And he knows the most dangerous battles are the ones fought in silence, where truth hides behind closed doors. He returns to the hallway where it happened, running his fingers over the dent in the door, a small indentation, but enough to tell a story of force, of rage, of intent. His pulse quickens as he imagines what could have happened if she pushed harder. If the old man's head hit at a different angle. A chill runs through him. He turns slowly, looking down the hallway where she now stands smiling faintly, unaware he knows the truth. In that moment, something shifts inside him, a vow forming quietly, dangerously. Whatever happens next, he will not let it go. She sits at the edge of the bed later that afternoon, staring at the wardrobe she once filled with pride, hardly recognizing the life she built inside these walls. The house feels colder now, every tile echoing whispers she can't silence. Her fingers dig into the bedsheet as she remembers the moment everything truly began, not with the slam, not with the bruise, but with a lie she planted years ago. It was small then, harmless even, but like a seed buried in fertile soil, it sprouted into roots that have now wrapped around everything she touches. It started the day she met his family for the first time, heart pounding, palms sweaty, desperate for approval she pretended not to need. She saw the father-in-law's eyes linger too long, measuring her, dissecting her, placing her in categories she didn't fit. His coldness struck her deeper than she admitted. To protect herself, she exaggerated a story, a rumor about someone from her past, twisted just enough to make her seem more virtuous than she felt. She watched their faces soften with sympathy. She watched judgment shift. And she realized the power of giving people a narrative. The lie grew the day the family argued about inheritance behind closed doors. She overheard her name tangled in harsh whispers, accusing her of being untrustworthy, undeserving, an outsider. Rage burned in her that day, and instead of confronting the truth, she created a new one. A fabricated tale of how the father-in-law insulted her lineage, disrespected her background, and vowed she'd never be part of the family. It was dramatic, believable, and perfectly timed. Her husband believed her without hesitation. From that moment on, the old man became the villain in her private story. As time passed, she added layers to her fiction, subtle shifts in tone, harmless omissions, emotional twists. Her husband became her shield, defending her fiercely from slights real or imagined. The family walked on eggshells. The father-in-law never understood why the relationship felt strained, why she avoided his eyes, why the air thickened whenever they shared a room. She built a quiet war without firing a single bullet, and everyone unknowingly walked into her battlefield. Each lie felt easier than the last, smoothing over insecurities she didn't want to confront. Eventually, the lie became part of her identity, a protective armor she wore to mask the feeling that she didn't belong. But with every passing year, resentment sank deeper, twisting into jealousy, anger, and a dark bitterness she couldn't shake. She convinced herself the old man despised her. She convinced herself he blocked her happiness, her progress, her place in the family. She believed her own story so deeply that when a minor confrontation happened last month, she exploded internally, blaming him for wounds she created with her own hands. She sits now, staring at her reflection in the mirror, realizing how far the deception has carried her. The woman staring back is hardened, exhausted, and chained to a narrative she no longer controls. She remembers the moment she pushed him, the way rage overtook logic, the way her body reacted faster than her conscience. In that instant, the lie that started as self-protection finally demanded a price. And she paid it with violence. Now the mask she wore so well feels heavy, suffocating, slipping with every breath. The truth hangs over her like a waiting storm. Downstairs, she hears footsteps, slow, deliberate, familiar. Her husband is moving through the house with the stillness of a man carrying a secret. She knows he's thinking, connecting dots, revisiting moments she hoped he forgot. The lie that once brought her closer to him is now pushing him away like a tide she can't fight. She realizes with a sinking heart that the truth she buried years ago is clawing its way to the surface. And when it finally rises, it will drag her entire marriage with it. Because lies don't stay buried, they come back hungry. The house shifts into a battlefield of silence, each room holding its breath as the air thickens with unspoken truths. She moves through the corridors with forced calm, pretending not to notice her husband's gaze tracking her like a shadow. The warmth that once lit the home now feels dim, replaced by a quiet hostility that settles into the furniture, the walls, the spaces between them. Every smile she fakes feels like a blade scraping across her throat. She senses love slipping away, turning cold, sharpening itself into something that watches her with suspicion instead of tenderness. He begins to withdraw in ways she never expected. No raised voice, no angry outburst, just a steady retreat that feels more painful than confrontation. He leaves the bed earlier than usual, returns home later, chooses the far end of the couch instead of the spot beside her. His silence becomes louder than any argument they've ever had. She studies him during dinner, the careful way he avoids looking directly at her. The distance feels calculated, deliberate. She tries to speak at times, but the words die in her throat, choked by guilt and fear she can't hide. The father-in-law senses the tension, watching both of them with wary eyes whenever she enters the room. She pretends not to notice the way he flinches slightly when she walks too close, the way his fingers tighten around the armrest of his chair. His fear fuels her shame, but also her anger, an anger she tries to bury under layers of politeness. Every attempt to act normal feels staged, as if she's performing in front of an audience that knows she's lying. She realizes the home no longer belongs to her, it belongs to the consequences. Small gestures become weapons. He sets down his spoon a little too gently. She folds laundry with too much precision. He walks past her without brushing her shoulder. She breathes carefully, trying to sound unaffected. The tension coils like a rope tightening around both their throats, each movement pulling them further apart. She tries to reclaim control by cleaning, cooking, organizing, but instead of restoring balance, her efforts expose cracks she can't mend. The man she once trusted with her heart now watches her like she's a stranger walking through the ruins of their marriage. She begins to notice the subtle shifts. The missing warmth in his eyes, the quiet conversations he has in hushed tones when he thinks she's asleep, the way he locks his phone, something he never did before. She feels paranoia prick her skin like heat. Every vibration of his phone feels like a warning. She wonders if he's gathering evidence, talking to someone, or planning something she can't predict. Each unanswered question becomes a blade hanging over her head. Love, once her refuge, now feels like a trap she walked into with her eyes wide open. One night, long after midnight, she stands at the doorway of their bedroom watching him sleep with his back turned toward her. His breathing is steady, calm, untouched by the storm pulling her apart. She reaches out to touch his shoulder, but stops halfway, her hand hovering in the darkness. The distance between them feels like a canyon she can't cross. She withdraws slowly, closing the door with a quiet click that echoes louder than a slammed door. She realizes she's losing him, not through betrayal from him, but through the truth catching up to her. By morning, even sunlight feels hostile. She enters the kitchen to find him preparing breakfast for his father, a task she always handled. The scene hits her like a blow. It feels symbolic, intentional, a quiet declaration that her place in this home is fading. She stands frozen, realizing love has reshaped itself into judgment, and judgment has sharpened itself into silent revenge. Every step she takes is now monitored by the weight of what she did. And as she watches him care for the man she hurt, she understands something bone deep. Love can heal, but it can also punish. The first sign of trouble arrives with the sound of car doors slamming outside, sharp, hurried, unsettled. She peeks through the window and sees relatives stepping out one by one, their faces tight with worry and curiosity. Word has spread faster than she imagined. She watches them gather near the gate, whispering in low tones, glancing repeatedly toward the house. Her stomach tightens. Family rarely arrives unannounced, and when they do, it's never good news. She backs away from the window, pulse racing, realizing that the moment she feared, the moment of public judgment, has finally begun. The sitting room fills quickly, chairs moving, handbags dropping, voices rising in anxious waves. Aunties fan themselves dramatically, uncles clear their throats with authority, cousins hover as if waiting for a spectacle. The father-in-law sits quietly in the middle, his bruise glowing like an accusation under the bright light. She stands at the edge of the room gripping her wrapper, feeling like an intruder in her own home. Their eyes scan her face, searching for guilt, waiting to hear her explanation. But the silence she hears isn't curiosity, it's verdict. Sharpened by years of buried family tension, questions begin softly, layered with faux concern. How did he fall? Who was present? Why didn't she call anyone? But soon, the undertone shifts. Auntie Atund leans forward, eyes narrowed, asking about the bruise with the confidence of someone sure she already knows the truth. Her husband stands behind the couch, arms crossed, offering no rescue, no defense. The pressure builds as each relative adds their suspicion, their irritation, their long-collected resentment toward her. Every word feels like a stone thrown at her feet, daring her to trip. She tries to answer, but her voice refuses to rise. Her mother-in-law's elder sister stands suddenly, clearing her throat with the authority of a village chief. She starts recounting every moment over the years when something felt off about her quietness, her distance, her too-perfect behavior. What was once praise now becomes evidence. Each observation drips like acid, reshaping her image in the room. The others nod slowly, murmuring agreement, piecing together a story she cannot control. She watches her reputation unravel in real time, brick by brick, all built upon lies she crafted and behaviors she thought no one noticed. Just when she thinks the interrogation has peaked, her husband steps forward. The room quiets instantly. He doesn't raise his voice. He only recounts what he saw: the slam, the fall, the blood. Every detail lands like thunder. Her knees weaken, and several aunties gasp, covering their mouths in shock. She feels the room tilt as whispers explode, some calling for explanation, others calling for consequences. Her husband's face remains cold, unreadable, void of the softness that once made her feel safe. The final blow comes when he adds 4 quiet words: "I saw everything myself." Now the room turns fully against her. Relatives shift their chairs away. A cousin mutters that she should be reported. An older uncle suggests spiritual cleansing. Someone else demands she apologize immediately. The noise swells into chaotic layers: judgment, accusation, fearful speculation. She feels cornered, stripped, exposed. Her chest burns with humiliation as the family she tried so hard to impress now stares at her like she's a stranger who wandered into the wrong house. Tears threaten to fall, but she swallows them down, knowing any weakness will feed their fury. She stands still, silently drowning. When the father-in-law finally speaks, his voice is soft but heavy, too heavy for her to bear. He admits he doesn't know why she hates him. He admits he always tried to make peace. His tremor-filled words pierce the room, and every eye shifts back to her. The weight becomes unbearable. She opens her mouth to defend herself, but before she can form a sentence, her husband announces that he will handle the punishment privately. A hush sweeps the room. Even the aunties stop talking. His statement is not comfort, it is a warning. And everyone knows it. He waits until the house empties, until the last auntie climbs into her Uber and the compound gate clicks shut. Only then does he lock the door and inhale slowly, as though sealing the world out and sealing his intentions in. The silence settles like dust, heavy and suffocating. She watches him from across the living room, expecting a confrontation, a shout, a breakdown. But he offers none of that. He moves with slow, calculated precision, placing his phone on the table, adjusting a chair, picking up a pen. Every action feels deliberate, rehearsed, engineered for impact. He opens a small drawer in the TV stand, pulling out a folder she has never seen before, thick, sealed, covered in his handwriting. Her chest tightens. She takes a step forward, but he raises a hand slightly without looking at her, and she freezes. He begins flipping through documents, his expression unreadable. The rustle of paper echoes louder than any argument. She feels a cold wave wash over her as she realizes he's not reacting. He's preparing. The folder becomes a symbol of something far more terrifying than anger. It is strategy, and strategy means intention. He leaves the room briefly and returns with his laptop, placing it beside the folder. He opens it slowly, fingers tapping with eerie calm. Videos appear on the screen, security footage from a hallway. Angles she didn't know existed. The moment she slammed his father's head plays back frame by frame. She grips the back of a chair to steady herself as the truth hits her. He has been collecting evidence, not just seeing the act, documenting it. He clicks another file, revealing months of quietly saved clips, timestamps she never noticed, patterns she didn't even know she had. He sends a single message on his phone, short, discreet, typed with a steadiness that chills her. She tries to read over his shoulder, but fails. Panic bubbles in her throat. Is he contacting a lawyer? A therapist? A relative? Someone from his office? The possibilities multiply, like shadows in a dark room. He doesn't look at her once. He simply continues sending messages, scheduling calls, attaching files. She stands in the center of the room feeling like a woman watching her life being dismantled piece by the man she once believed would protect her. He begins separating items around the house. Documents in one pile, bills in another, keys placed neatly on the dining table. She watches in horror as he removes her name from certain envelopes, replaces her signature with his own, sorts out property papers with a precision she doesn't recognize. He moves like a man who has rehearsed this moment in his mind for years. And in a haunting way, he almost looks peaceful. She tries to speak, but fear wraps around her throat like a rope. His quiet organization is louder than fury. It is method. And method means punishment. He finally looks at her, not with rage, but with a calm so sharp it feels like violence. His eyes scan her face slowly, as if memorizing the woman he once trusted. Then he turns away again, walking into their bedroom and returning with a suitcase. She feels her legs tremble. The suitcase hits the floor softly, but the message is thunder. He begins folding her clothes, not angrily, but carefully, almost tenderly. That tenderness breaks her more than any scream could. It means he is finished. It means the decision is final. And she has no idea what comes next. As night deepens, he places the packed suitcase by the door and sits down at the dining table with all the documents spread out like a battlefield map. She approaches slowly, but he doesn't acknowledge her. Instead, he taps the screen of his laptop, pulling up a final file, one she's never seen, labeled simply, Contingency. She realizes then that this was never an impulsive reaction. He had a plan long before the slam. A plan shaped by silence, doubt, and months of quiet observation. And the most frightening part is the thought that refuses to leave her mind. If this is only the beginning, what is the end? Morning arrives with no warmth, only a knife-edge brightness that exposes everything she hoped the night would hide. She steps outside to pick up the trash bin, trying to pretend the suitcase by the door doesn't exist, when she notices neighbors gathered in small clusters along the walkway. Their eyes lift the moment they see her. Conversations pause. Backs string. Whispers rise like smoke. She senses the shift immediately. Something is wrong, very wrong. Phones are out. Screens glow. Her throat tightens as she realizes they are not staring at her randomly. They are waiting for her reaction. She walks back into the house trembling, her mind racing. When she reaches the living room, she freezes. The TV is on, volume low, showing the estate WhatsApp community group chat. Someone leaked the hallway footage. The slam, the fall, the bruise. The video loops silently, each replay slicing deeper into her pride. Her husband stands near the window, arms folded, watching her face instead of the screen. She holds her breath, humiliation burning through her skin. She had feared whispers. What she never expected was exposure. And not just exposure, documentation. By noon, relatives begin calling nonstop. Some shout. Some cry. Some ask how she could disgrace the family so publicly. She stares at the phone vibrating violently on the table, unable to pick up. The pressure builds like heat trapped in a locked room. Her husband doesn't intervene. He doesn't comfort her. He simply sits in silence as her world collapses in front of him. When the father-in-law enters the room, leaning on his walking stick, she lowers her head instinctively. His eyes hold disappointment, so heavy it feels like stones pressing against her chest. She can't breathe. The estate security guards arrive next, asking if everything is all right, pretending their concern is procedural, but their sideways glances betray curiosity. A small crowd of residents gathers near the gate, murmuring, pointing, speculating. Children whisper among themselves. Housewives pretend to water plants while listening intently. Her name becomes a headline in a community that thrives on scandal. The humiliation is suffocating. She steps out to ask the guards a question, but someone snaps a photo faster than she realizes. A camera flash blinds her briefly, reminding her that she has lost control of her own story. Her husband finally stands, moving with the gravitas of a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. He walks into the dining room and retrieves the suitcase, placing it at her feet with a quiet finality that steals her balance. She feels the room tilt. He gestures toward the door, not forcefully, but with a cold expectation that burns deeper than anger. She shakes her head slowly, tears gathering. The man she thought she knew is gone, replaced by someone shaped by betrayal and duty. She reaches out instinctively for his hand, but he steps back, his silence sharper than rejection. When she refuses to move, he picks up his phone and dials a number she doesn't recognize. A few minutes later, his older sister arrives, stern, blunt, carrying authority like armor. She doesn't greet. She doesn't scold. She simply lifts the suitcase, opens the door, and gestures for her to follow. The humiliation becomes unbearable. Her legs weaken, but she forces herself to stand, knowing every second spent here tightens the noose of disgrace. The hallway she once walked with confidence now feels like the walk of a condemned woman, each step echoing her downfall. As she steps outside, the estate falls into eerie silence. Everyone watches. Some whisper, some pity, some look satisfied. Even the birds seem to pause on the electric wires, as if the entire world has turned to witness her fall. Her husband remains at the doorway, expression unreadable, arms folded, silhouette framed by the house she may never enter again. She hesitates, praying he'll stop this, but his stillness gives her the answer she feared. This is only the first chapter of her punishment. And as the gate closes behind her, one truth hits hard. She has only started losing. She sits alone in her sister-in-law's spare room, the air stale, the curtains half-drawn, light slicing through in thin white lines that expose everything she tried to hide. The walls feel too close, pressing inward like they want to hear her confession. Her suitcase lies untouched in the corner, a quiet reminder of where she came from and what she destroyed. For the first time in months, she hears her own breathing, uneven and fragile. There is no noise to drown her thoughts, no mask to rehearse, no performance to maintain. Only her and the truth she fears. She walks to the bathroom sink and splashes water on her face, hoping the cold will steady her trembling. But when she lifts her head, the mirror reflects someone she barely recognizes. Eyes swollen, shoulders slumped, spirit cracked. Her reflection looks older, worn out, stripped of the arrogance that once made her feel untouchable. She studies the woman in the glass carefully, noticing how bitterness hardened her jawline, how resentment carved subtle lines around her mouth. She presses her palm against the mirror as if trying to touch a version of herself she abandoned long ago. Memories flood her mind in a disjointed wave. The moments she lied, exaggerated, manipulated. The small victories that felt like triumphs at the time, the petty grudges she allowed to grow into storms. Each memory hits like a punch, forcing her to acknowledge the part of herself she tried to bury underneath charm and performance. She remembers the first day she stepped into her husband's family home, intimidated but ambitious, determined to create a version of herself they would adore. She never realized pretending to be perfect would eventually demand payment from every corner of her life. She sits on the bed hugging her knees, letting the silence break open a wound she avoided for years. Under all the anger, resentment, and jealousy, she finds something she never expected. Fear. Fear that she was never enough. Fear that his family saw through her. Fear that her husband would one day realize he could have done better. These fears poisoned her slowly, turning every small disagreement into a threat. She let those fears twist her into someone she isn't proud of, a woman who attacked instead of healed, who fought shadows instead of seeking peace. Her phone rings. Her husband's name flashes on the screen. Her heart lurches painfully. She doesn't answer. She can't. Not yet. Instead, she listens to the ringing echo through the room, each vibration stirring something deeper in her chest. She wonders what he wants. Closure? Confrontation? Divorce? Pity? The possibilities terrify her. She realizes that, even now, a part of her clings to the belief that he might still choose her. But another part knows she has crossed a line that cannot be undone. The call ends, leaving an even heavier silence behind, a silence that demands truth. She walks outside to the compound, barefoot on the cool tiles, hoping the evening air will loosen the tightness in her chest. Cars drive by lazily, children laugh in the distance, a neighbor waters her flowers. Life carries on effortlessly, while her world crumbles. She leans against the railing, feeling the weight of every mistake hang on her shoulders like wet clothes. For years, she blamed everyone else for the emptiness she felt inside. Today, for the first time, she admits the darkness didn't come from outside. It came from her, and facing it feels like standing naked in the rain. As night settles, she sits under a dim bulb on the balcony and allows herself to finally cry. Not the angry, defensive tears she shed in the past, but the deep, soul-shaking tears of a woman confronting her own shadow. She realizes she can no longer hide behind excuses or lies. She must choose, remain broken and bitter, or begin the painful journey toward forgiveness, of herself, and maybe one day, of the man whose heart she shattered. She wipes her face, inhaling shakily. And in that quiet, vulnerable moment, she makes a silent vow. Tomorrow, she will face the consequences with open eyes. Morning breaks with a strange calm, the kind that settles right before a storm changes direction. She steps outside her room, expecting another day of silence and uncertainty, but instead finds her sister-in-law waiting in the corridor with folded arms and a look that reveals nothing. Before she can speak, her sister-in-law points downstairs. Her husband is here. Her heart slams against her ribs. She descends the staircase slowly, every step heavy with dread, because the man waiting below is not the one she married. He is the embodiment of every consequence heading her way. He sits on the sofa, like a judge presiding over a court, only he understands. His posture is steady, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, they cut straight through her. She approaches cautiously, bracing for rage, but he offers none. Instead, he gestures for her to sit opposite him, leaving an ocean of space between them. She lowers herself into the chair, hands trembling, heart thundering. The silence stretches, filling the room like smoke. She tries to read him, but the calmness unnerves her more than anger ever could. This kind of silence always holds punishment. He places a stack of papers on the table, the same documents she saw scattered during his quiet revenge, now organized with frightening precision. Slowly, he pushes them toward her. She recognizes some: property forms, bank statements, joint account papers. Others are new: printed screenshots, timelines, handwritten notes. Her breath catches. He has mapped everything: the lies, the inconsistencies, the patterns of resentment she thought she hid. With each page she scans, her stomach sinks deeper. He didn't just prepare a retaliation. He studied her, traced her wounds, and tracked her decisions like a detective studying a suspect. Then he unfolds a single sheet, a separation plan. Not forceful, not violent, just painfully clear. She feels the world tilt as he explains, not with anger, but with chilling clarity. The time apart, the financial boundaries, the consequences for violating them, the steps needed before marriage counseling can even begin. His voice remains steady, almost gentle, yet every word breaks another piece of her. She expected shouting, accusations, dramatic battles. But this quiet, structured justice hits harder. It is the kind of punishment that forces her to sit with herself, not run from herself. He stands and walks to the window, speaking without turning toward her. He admits he once believed she was the safest person in his world. He admits he ignored the signs. He admits her deception wounded him deeper than the slam wounded his father. She listens, each sentence slicing through the illusions she built. When he finally turns, his eyes are wet, not with pity, but with disappointment so profound it shakes her core. She wants to speak, to explain, to beg, but the words dissolve before they reach her lips. His heartbreak becomes a mirror she can't escape. He steps closer, stopping just inches from her, not in affection, but in finality. He tells her he has forgiven her actions, but cannot trust her intentions. Forgiveness is mercy. Trust is earned. She realizes the difference too late. The weight of that truth crushes what remains of her confidence. He hands her the separation paper gently, the same way someone hands a fragile item that might break. The softness stings more than fury. She clutches the paper, feeling its edges bite into her palm, each corner reminding her that every decision she made now has a cost. When he turns to leave, she reaches out instinctively, not to hold him back, but to touch the fabric of the life slipping away. Her fingers barely brush his sleeve before he steps aside, not harshly, but with the sorrow of someone protecting a wound still bleeding. He walks toward the door without another glance, leaving her in the center of the room surrounded by evidence of her own undoing. The door closes softly behind him, and in that silence, she understands karma didn't need to shout, punish, or destroy her violently. It simply borrowed her husband's face and showed her the truth. The weeks that follow move slowly, each day feeling like a long walk through thick Harmattan air. She stays with her sister-in-law, navigating a life suddenly stripped of routine, comfort, and the illusion of control. The community's whispers soften over time, but the echo remains, a reminder of the incident that exposed everything she hid. She avoids the estate market, the church, and old neighbors, knowing her name sits on their tongues the moment she appears. The world feels smaller, tighter. Yet beneath that shrinking space, something unexpected begins to form, a fragile, painful desire to grow. Her husband's home becomes a distant silhouette she only sees from afar, driving past it with the windows rolled halfway, heart pounding each time she imagines him inside. She notices small changes, curtains replaced, furniture rearranged, a new flower pot near the entrance. Life is continuing without her, reshaping itself quietly. One afternoon, she sees him walking his father on the compound pavement, slow steps, gentle support, steady patience. The scene pierces her, not with jealousy, but with a deep recognition of what she took for granted. She realizes some wounds heal louder than apologies ever could. She starts attending counseling sessions arranged by her sister-in-law, sitting in a small office with beige walls and a ticking clock that seems to count down her past mistakes. She talks about insecurity, about pride, about how fear shaped her into someone she barely recognizes. Some sessions end with tears. Others end with silence. But each one cracks open a part of her she hid for years. For the first time, she stops blaming others. No father-in-law, no husband, no extended family. She acknowledges the corners of her heart where bitterness grew unchecked. Healing begins there. The community receives updates the way communities always do. Through hushed conversations at the salon, comments under WhatsApp posts, and quiet exchanges at the estate gate. Some sympathize. Some judge. Some don't care. But everyone agrees on one thing. The transformation is visible. She carries herself differently now, with fewer sharp edges, more humility, more reflection. Yet even with change blooming slowly inside her, the question everyone whispers remains the same. Will her husband ever take her back? She doesn't dare ask him. Not yet. She knows reconciliation without transformation is just another mask. One evening, as the sun dips behind the rooftops, she receives a message from her husband. Not a paragraph, not a lecture, just one line. We need to talk. Her hands shake as she grabs her shawl and walks toward the house she once ruled with fear and false confidence. The compound feels familiar yet strange, like a childhood home revisited after a lifetime. She reaches the door, heart hammering, breath short. When it opens, she sees both men, her husband and father-in-law, standing together, their presence strong and unmoving. The moment feels heavier than judgment itself. Her husband gestures for her to sit, and the father-in-law watches her with eyes no longer afraid, but weary. She expects condemnation, But instead, her husband speaks of boundaries, accountability, and the possibility, not the promise, of rebuilding. The father-in-law, voice soft, says he accepts the apology she has not yet spoken aloud. Her tears fall freely. The forgiveness isn't full, not yet. Trust isn't restored, not yet. But there is a door open, narrow, fragile, but real. She whispers a quiet promise to herself. Change will not be temporary this time. It will be lived. By the end of the week, the community hears the final update. She is not returning fully, but she is no longer exiled. She will attend counseling, rebuild trust brick by brick, and earn her place with sincerity instead of performance.
Some are shocked. Some are relieved. Some don't understand.
But her husband's decision becomes the lesson. Punishment can expose, but healing transforms. And as she walks home under the soft